Tesh Dile and welcome to Tibet This Week. This is Sakina Bhatt with another edition of Weekly News on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration. Let's look at the headlines first. Secular ethics a must in modern education, says His Holiness the Dalai Lama. His Holiness condoles Japan over deadly typhoon. His Holiness congratulates Ethiopian Prime Minister on Nobel Peace Prize. Mr. Sonam Norbu Dagpo sworn in as Chief Justice Commissioner. Senators of Czech Republic affirm solidarity with Tibet. Tibetan students house arrested in Chennai during Xi Jinping's visit. Rochester Chinese students interrupt Tibetan speakers. United States Commission on International Religious Freedom urges U.S. Congress to swiftly pass Tibetan Policy and Support Act of 2019. While talking about the need for universal ethics in modern education, His Holiness the Dalai Lama emphasized on the importance of introduction of secular ethics in the current education system. His Holiness was delivering a talk at the inaugural ceremony of the 11th Global Week at the Chitkara University on Monday this week. His Holiness said the modern education system introduced in India by the British tends to have a materialistic orientation. The concept of ahimsa and karuna, samatha and vipassana were born in India over 3,000 years ago.
We really need some education about our emotion, about our mind. Otherwise, basic nature, these positive things there are, but our brain, they mainly thinking material value. So in education should include about our mind, emotion, and how to tackle these things.
His Holiness was presented with an honorary Doctor of Literature degree by Chitkara University, which marked the start of the 11th Global Week.
And the 11th Global Week is where all the professors are coming from all across the world, and they will be with the students. And this was the proper time that when His Holiness is there, so he will talk about the global peace. And these all leaders are very, very excited to listen from him that how we have to give peace to the world, because it is the need of the hour to do that. And that was the reason that we have called him.
At another venue in Chandigarh, His Holiness termed love and compassion as basic human nature, emphasizing again on making secular ethics a part of modern education. This talk took place at the Chandigarh University on the occasion of the 550th birth anniversary of Sri Guru Nanak Sahib Ji.
Sometimes, you see, existing modern education very much oriented about material value, not to pay much attention about our inner human value. That is very important. So this modern education comes from West. In this country, mainly introduced by Britisher. Now in this country, over 3,000 years already developed a sense of concern of our inner being, inner value. So the concept of ahimsa, before Buddha come, before Mahavira come, already developed concept of ahimsa. So now, after I came to India and also visit Europe, America, and the former Soviet Union and this area, eventually I noticed, the knowledge which we kept originally come from Nalanda. That is something really necessary to today's world.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama returned to Dharamshala last Wednesday after completing the Chandigarh tour. His Holiness, in a letter to the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, offered his condolences over the destruction caused by the storm last week. Japan has experienced such a havoc for the first time in a decade. His Holiness wrote, "I would like to offer my condolences to the families of those who lost their lives as a result of the recent typhoon Hagibis." He further wrote, "I would like to congratulate you and your government for the efficient measures that you have put in place in anticipation of the storm and its consequences." As a result of the heavy rainfall, Fukushima and surrounding areas in the south of Tokyo were flooded last Sunday. His Holiness congratulated the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed Ali, for being awarded this year's Nobel Peace Prize.
The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2019 to Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali for his efforts to achieve peace and international cooperation, and in particular for his decisive initiative to resolve the border conflict with neighboring Eritrea.
His Holiness wrote to Ali saying, "The establishment of friendly relations between neighbors like Ethiopia and Eritrea will benefit not only the citizens of those countries, but will also set an example for countries everywhere to work for their common good. I am encouraged too to learn of your contribution to search for peace elsewhere in East and Northeast Africa." He further added, "The way you reached out to President Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea and his positive response and willingness to enter into dialogue has helped to make possible the peace process. The two of you have demonstrated through your actions what I consider to be a simple truth: genuine reconciliation is possible in a spirit of mutual respect." Sonam Norbu Dagpo was sworn in as Chief Justice Commissioner of Tibetan Supreme Justice Commission on Tuesday this week. For the first time, Central Tibetan Administration held a swearing-in ceremony open for all its staff at the Tea Building in Dharamshala. Succeeding Kyrgyz Dundub, Mr. Dagpo was elected during the 8th session of the 16th Tibetan Parliament in exile. He served for 37 years in various roles and positions in the Tibetan bureaucracy. Speaking at a panel on human rights in China at the 21st Century Digital Surveillance in Prague on Tuesday, CTA President Dr. Lobsang Singye called for a coordinated approach, coalition and collaborative effort to confront the advancing threat from China. In a panel discussion joined by prominent activists and critics of China, Dr. Singye expressed that the repressive tactics and policies that are now evident in East Turkestan and Hong Kong are actually the repeat of what they have been practicing in Tibet for many years. Dr. Singye strongly condemned Chinese atheist government's interference in the reincarnation system of Tibetan Buddhism.
In our part of the world, at least in the Tibetan world, His Holiness the Dalai Lama is our leader, and actually he is the twin brother of Václav Havel in his philosophy, in his approach. You talked about human responsibility, which you defined it as beyond one person, beyond nation and beyond cause. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama has written a book called Universal Responsibility. So every person, a leader, should always think of universe and humanity as priority before deciding on your own family, on your own community, even your own nation and region.
A video message from His Holiness the Dalai Lama calling upon the citizens of Czech to carry out late Havel's principle was also screened at the event. Demonstrating a solidarity with Tibet, the Czech Senate hosted a reception in honor of Dr. Singye and reaffirmed its support to the middle way approach. After his 3-day Prague visit, Dr. Singye met with members of European Parliament, Laurent Vince, in Brussels on Wednesday. Dr. Singye briefed on the situation in Tibet and urged for his support. Dr. Singye also gave the keynote address at the conference on the reincarnation of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which was co-organized by International Federation for Human Rights and International Campaign for Tibet. Tibetan students in Chennai were unnecessarily put on house arrest during Xi Jinping's India visit last week. The Indian chapter of the core group for Tibetan cause strongly condemned this unlawful act. They urged the state government for the immediate release, stating that the Constitution of India ensures the right to protest against any form of injustice despite opposing political and social powers. The same rights are equally applied to Tibetans as well. India hosted the second informal summit between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Mamallapuram near Chennai from 11th to 12th October. They had discussions upon overarching issues of bilateral, regional and global importance. National convener of Core Group for Tibetan Cause, Sri R.K. Khime, appealed to the Indian Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi to discuss the issue of Tibet with the Chinese Premier Xi Jinping. In his letter to the Prime Minister, Sri R.K. Khime highlighted the grave situation inside Tibet, the need for a peaceful resolution to the issue of Tibet through dialogue, and to protect the fragile ecology of Tibetan Plateau. Rochester Chinese students interrupted two Tibetan speakers who were invited to University of Rochester's College Republican Organization. Representative Ngodup Tsering, Office of Tibet, Washington, D.C. and Chinese Liaison Officer Tsultrim Gyatso were invited to talk about Tibet dialogue, its future and democracy in exile. The organizers cordially talked to the Chinese protesters and a meaningful dialogue assumed in its place. Bobby Walker, the chairman of the New York Federation of College Republicans, issued a statement regarding the attempted censorship of speech at the University of Rochester. The Chinese Students Association attempted to stop events about controversial China human rights crisis through a legal process. Walker calls for an investigation of the Chinese Students Association and alleges that their conduct is likely to gain favor by the Chinese Communist Party. The United States Commission on International Religious Freedom supports Tibet Policy Act 2019 and urges the U.S. Congress to swiftly pass the act. The bill would impose sanctions and a visa ban on any Chinese official who interferes in the selection of a successor to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The bill would require the Secretary of State to establish a consulate in Lhasa. The Commissioner of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, Gary Boyer, said, "Without the right to choose their leaders, religious communities in China essentially have no freedom." Commissioner Tenzing Dorji said, "We have watched with alarm as the Chinese government increases its stranglehold not only over Tibetan Buddhists, but also over Uyghur Muslims, Christians, Falun Gong practitioners and other religious communities throughout the country." That's all for this week. See you next time and have a great weekend.